Your home for everything rugby league. This is Running It Straight with Sam Hewat and Anthony Gelling on SENZ.
Running It Straight here on SENZ, the 11th of September, and finals football is on the horizon in the NRL. The Warriors, of course, are not involved, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy all the NRL action over the next month or so as we look to crown the 2024 premiers. Jello, welcome in for another week. We're going to get stuck in very, very shortly. We're actually going to start off this particular show by looking at the teams outside of the 8 and review their seasons in 2024 before tucking into the games this weekend. And former Warrior, former Bronco, host of Bloke in a Bar, host of the Captain's Run for SEN, Denan Kemp, is going to join us to preview the finals a little bit later on. But how you feeling, Jello? Warriors Awards were on Sunday. That was to wrap up their season for 2024. We're into finals this week. How you feeling about it all? You seem a bit tired, though.
I'm a little bit. My little man has had. He's got his teeth coming through at the moment.
Yes.
So it's been a rough week. I don't think I've slept more than 4 hours continuously. So
really?
Yeah.
Up in the nights. It's hard when they're teething because there's not a lot you can do.
I'm not too bad. Like, no sleep, I'm all right. I'll keep going. But after, by the Wednesday, Thursday, it starts to get me, yeah.
Bit of Bonjela.
I'm
how many coffees a day, then?
Huh?
How many coffees a day?
I'll just stick it to 2.
Yeah. Otherwise, do you...
Huh?
You start getting the
a
shake.
little bit. But you know what? The excitement of the finals is that gives me the shakes.
You've been doing a lot of rugby league too, man. You came on breakfast with us on Monday and talked to us about you're doing the high school comp at the moment, the secondary school comp here in New Zealand. So, you're doing a lot of league there on the weekends.
21 games.
Commentating. And then you're straight into watching NRL games at night so you can analyse them all here on SENZ.
Break them all down piece by piece.
Right. So we're going to go through the bottom 8 teams first, Jello, and just review their seasons for 2024, and then we'll have a look at the finals game this weekend. You can text us anytime on 8833. Denan Kemp coming up in around about 35 minutes' time. So we'll start right down the bottom. Let's start with the West Tigers. Now, I don't know, I haven't found where your ladder prediction, so I don't know if you've got anything there or whether you're just going to make it up on the spot.
Well, my predictions are pretty much what you see at the table on the moment.
Right, it's exactly how, you've hit it bang on, 100%. That's what I thought. So Tigers finishing in 17th position, 18.6 wins, 18 losses. Of course, they went down to the Eels in the final game of the season to pick up the wooden spoon. Jello, I had them in 16th. This year, so I had them one better than the wooden spoon, but I thought they'd still struggle through 2024. Can you tell me where you had them?
I had them last.
You had them 17th, did you? You didn't think they'd improve at all?
No.
You didn't think nothing about the Benji effect was going to...
No, I knew they were in for another rough ride. They've got some good young guys, but they're still going to take time.
Player of the year for you out of the Tigers?
Isaiah Papali'i.
Wow. He's leaving too.
I thought he was a massive pickup for them when he came from the Eels. And he didn't disappoint. Between him and Api was also like a real leader, stood up for them. They'll be a good team next year if they can keep hold of at least some of these young guys that they're giving time to. But
that is the hard thing.
It's a loss. That's a big loss for them.
Funnily enough, I think I might put Lockie Galvin as their player of the year, and that's not just for the performance, but actually the hype that he's sort of brought to the Tigers. If they didn't have a dynamic youngster like him, I think the fans would have struggled to get through 2024, but he actually provided a bit of light in their dark times. Young kid, he was 18 years old, I think, when he first played, and he basically was there the whole year. 100% would win the NRL's Rookie of the Year if he didn't have the suspension, which I think is a stupid rule. There's absolutely no doubt that Lockie Galvin is the rookie player of the season, but he won't get it because he was suspended. He had the grade 2 suspension. So, it's silly, but I think in my mind he's the rookie of 2024.
Yeah, I agree, and I can't see that rule being in place too much longer.
It's just a stupid rule. I understand a longer ban, like maybe a 6-week plus, where it's a real big indiscretion, but with the way on reports are going nowadays, you get bans left, right, and centre for 1, 2, 3 weeks. So I don't like it, and I think he would get that Rookie of the Year award if he didn't have that against his name.
Trying to think who else maybe. We'll talk about some of these.
We'll get through some of the
young guns.
So the outlook for 2025 for the Tigers, Jello?
I think they're going to lift off the bottom.
Finally.
But I don't know who's going to take their place.
That is the big question. Who's going to take their place? Because I was thinking, my rationale at the start of this year was that with Benji, with some of the players they brought in, I thought, this is a team that maybe builds a little bit more and gets a few more wins. Now I'm in a position like you are. Okay, if they are going to be better, who's going to be worse?
I'm thinking maybe the Dolphins.
Yeah, I was thinking the Dolphins potentially there.
They've been on a big slide.
So 16th, 15th, we are randomly putting the Tigers right here, right now for 2025.
Bottom 4.
Bottom 4? Yep. Okay. 16th position of the Rabbits, 20 points, 7 wins, 17 losses. This is the embarrassing one for me. I had them top 4. I had them in 4th position. I thought a smoky for the top 4, and maybe even challenging a top 2 spot.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, but you, of course, had them in 16th.
I had them bottom 3. I had them and the Eels around the other way. So, we're all wrong.
Oh, well, big disappointment for them, Jello. On paper, a fantastic side. That's why I had them top 4. Jack White and Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell, Alex Johnson, Cam Murray, Damien Cook, Keon Kolomatangi. The list goes on. What went wrong for them in 2024?
I think at the start of the year, we saw it from the first game in Vegas where they were lacking in the middle a little bit. They had Totola there. He didn't look like he was up for playing big minutes. Burgess, all of a sudden, he looks very old. And you just felt that middle was lacking some fire.
Just the middle?
I mean,
not having Latrell for most of your season doesn't help.
They were still waiting for Whiten to come back. And then when he did come back, they took a while to put him in at 6. So there's a little bit of a breakdown in the half.
No Campbell Graham either, which I said last year. I think he's one of the best centres in the competition. Defensively, the best centre in the competition. So that's a big loss for them. I'll ask you about their outlook for 2025 because I think it's going to be better. But player of the year for them, for the Souths, in your mind?
Oh, Damien Cook, he just tried and tried and tried and tried. And he didn't have actually, Jacob Gagai was another good one. He was a surprise package. He had some tough assignments every week. He's marking up against some very good edges. And I think he held his own and played well in a season that you could just about write off for the Bunnies.
I put Jai Gray as an honourable mention because to fill the shoes of Latrell Mitchell was pretty tough, and he did it. You look at some of the youngsters that have come into the NRL this year, and I think about the Raiders in particular with like Chevy Stewart and Kyle Weeks and Ethan Strange, and you put Jai Gray up there, and the man held his own, right? Like in the cauldron of South Sydney in the fullback position. I think he should have had more game time. I think if they had him at fullback and had Latrell at centre, Whiten at that 6, they would have had a real genuine attacking threat and somewhere to go to in attack. It'll be interesting, how they play that in 2025. But I am going to give the player of the year for me to Kolomatangi. I thought he was fantastic in the middle and had to step up a lot when Cam Murray was away, out injured or whatever, suspended. So, I think Kolomatangi stepped up in a big way. So, outlook for 2025?
I see them floating around mid-table.
No top 8?
Maybe. Can I put them within 7 to 10?
The Wayne Bennett effect. You can if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cop out.
Or we're just going to pick a number.
No. I think the Wayne Bennett effect. I think they're top 8 next year. The Rabbits. I think they are. I'm not. I'll learnt my lesson. I won't put them top 4, but I will say they'll challenge for an 8th spot. Once again, it'll come down to how much does Latrell play, both injury and suspension, how fit the rest of them are, right? Cam Murray avoids HIAs, etc. But I think with Wayne Bennett under at the helm.
Yeah, for sure. There's always a bit of off-season movement too. Like you think what a team's doing next year. There's always going to be some late changes.
Couple of texts that have come in already on 8833 from Mark and Paul. They're talking about the Warriors, which we'll get to very shortly, boys. Mark says, Souths have always been my team, but I'm putting $100 on the Warriors to win the grand final next year. New halves and Fisher Harris, the big difference maker. That's from Mark. Love the positivity, Mark. 15th on the ladder this year, the Eels, 20 points, 7 wins, 17 losses. The win against the Tigers at the end, avoiding the wooden spoon, and they lift themselves off the bottom of the ladder. Leapfrog the Rabbits as well. I had them at 8th. Because I thought on paper, and I've said this every year, every game this year almost with the Eels, on paper, once again, like the Rabbits, Clint Cutherson at the back, Mitchell Moses, Dylan Brown, the likes of Campbell Gillard and Sean Lane and Bryce Cartwright, you think, on paper, that's a decent side. I had them scratching the 8, Jello, but they finished all the way down in 15th. Pretty tough season for them as well. Yeah,
I picked them down on the bottom, mate. They've had a few senior players that have been there a while now. I think they're too comfortable. I don't think they're looking to kind of lead the team anywhere promising. I think they're just happy with their contracts, and whoever comes in, whoever leaves, and they just kind of look after themselves. It seems like a bit of a culture issue with the Eels.
Yeah, 100%. It feels like they're on the precipice of potentially disaster, right? With like even Gutho, there's he's rumoured to be going all over the place. Regan Campbell-Gillard, he took a kick of his own try, which suggests that he's leaving the club. Yeah. Blaise Talangi, of course, going to the Panthers. He was a great standout for them. So, yeah, they're on the precipice, I think, of almost some sort of monumental collapse and rebuild. And keeping some of those guys in there, and I've heard even just floating around, Jello, Dylan Brown sort of, potentially wanting to get out of Parramatta. He's got a clause in his contract. I think it's every 2 years. I think
they all
leave.
have a clause like that.
Yeah,
the contracts are awful.
Yeah.
For the club, great for the players.
So player of the year for them, for the Eels?
Player of the year, Blaise Talangi.
I had Blaise Talangi as an honourable mention. Came in in the centres, didn't he? Debuted in the centres and scored a try on debut. Played then fullback, did he? I think he played
he went to fullback. 6 after that.
He went into the halves.
6 and then fullback.
And then ended up sort of in the wing and on the centres. So good play from him. But I also put Dylan Brown in the mix because, once again, having to step into Mitchell Moses, that sort of role in the halves alongside rookies and guys around him. And I thought he did well. Not, obviously he didn't change their season around, but
I'll give him my player of the year. Actually, I think because he played almost close to every game. Definitely tough without Mitch Moses. There was an adjustment there, and they played some great footy, man. Last 6 weeks, some good results.
Well, they beat the Warriors.
Yeah, towed up the Tigers is a good way to finish the year.
Yep. And got close in a couple others as well. So what do you reckon they're looking like in 2025?
I think they could take the wooden spoon next year. Yeah. Especially if, see how the off-season unfolds, but if they lose some of those superstars and...
Jason Ryle's not going to make a difference?
I just don't know, man. There's so much uncertainty there. Like it might be a change in personnel, not so much a change in coach that's going to help them.
There are a lot of teams, Jello, like I think about the Eels, I think about the Rabbits, that you're looking at as being the next Bulldogs or the Warriors, where you're sort of thinking they're going to finish 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, but hey, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm sitting here in a year's time going, the Eels have made the top 8 or the Rabbits are top 4. So there are going to be, like I say this to everyone, there will be a team next year that everyone thinks is going to finish down the bottom that'll finish in the top 8. It's guaranteed every single year. Well,
it's the Doggies this year.
It's the Doggies. And even the Dragons were challenging, right? I had them as wooden spooners. So there will be a team. Right, we'll take a break here on Running It Straight. You can keep your texts coming in on 8833. When we come back, we'll have a look at the Titans, Warriors, Broncos, Dragons, Dolphins and Raiders. And then we will have a look at this weekend's finals matches. Denan Kemp out of Bloke in a Bar, out of the Captain's Run for SEN, is going to join us to talk about that. Stay with us here on Running It Straight. Welcome back into Running It Straight here on SENZ. Texting on 8833 just in regards to the Eels. If Dylan Brown is looking around, is it worth a sniff for the wires, or do we have enough in the halves? Look, I have been hearing a few rumblings that the Warriors might be interested in Dylan Brown. I know they've tried that before, and I think I'm right in saying, Jello, before that this contract has a clause that he can leave or reassess it every 2 years, so it is definitely possible. We talked about in the break, I don't think the Warriors have the depth in the halves. Like Tamati and Luke Metcalf might work next year, but outside of that, there's almost nothing really coming through Cup. Ben Farr is leaving. He was playing 6 in New South Wales Cup, so I'm not sure the depth is there. So if you get a Dylan Brown in, then that gives you options. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm all for it, man. Like he's a guy that's ready to go. There's some players that I think the Kiwis have been away from home for a long time, and for them to come back, like kind of what Fisher Harris is doing, he's made a point of, he wants to come back and represent his country and represent his people. So I think that's awesome. I think Dylan Brown would fit into that category. Yeah,
I think there'd be a few out there like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that signing. Aaron Clark obviously is another one that's coming back home. And speaking of the Titans, we continue going up from the bottom of the ladder with the Titans in 14th place, 22 points, 8 wins, 16 losses. This is about the only one I got close, Jello. I had them in 13th. And they finished 14th. So, I know you had them in 14th, so you got them spot on. What did you make of the Titans in 2024?
There's a lot to work with there. There's some teams that I just think geographically are not set up to win the comp or to do well. Yep. I think Gold Coast, it's such a nice place to live, and that can take your mind off footy. If you live somewhere out west like Penrith,
all you got is footy.
Well, you got we're landlocked, brother. You're in there, you're playing footy. So I think anyone who goes to the Titans, I don't know, they just seem to just kick back a little bit because they got some great players. And getting Des there, I know they had some higher expectations in where they finished this year. Looking at their squad, it's a good squad. A lot of speed. It's like a track team, So if I was to pick out a best player this year, probably be Canberra.
Wow, okay, interesting. I'll come back to my player very short, but just talking about the geographical. Sometimes it's not even geographical. I just think some clubs in their sort of DNA, Jello, it feels like, and they're one of them, and at the moment I think the Tigers, now I know they won a title in 2005, but it feels like the Tigers and the Titans and teams like that, it's like their DNA right now just isn't winning. It's not winning titles, and they can beat teams on an off day, or they can put 66 points on the Warriors, the Titans, but it doesn't feel like they're primed for a premiership, right?
Just the way the club's set up and the recruitment set up, the teams are far too transient. Every player that's going there is, okay, I'll go there while I figure out what's happening next. Yeah. I'll sign a 2-year deal and hopefully I'll play well. And
transient, I like that. So is that one of your words that you...
I don't know if that's what it means. Like, come somewhere and
it's a great word. It's exactly what it means.
Okay, there you go. It just felt right. It felt right.
It sounded right.
Yeah.
So
don't ask me to spell it. But,
player of the year, spelling bee. We're going to do the weekly spelling bee on Running It Straight in 2025. So you went for Canberra player of the year. I'm split between, I think, Kieran Foran, and that's not a, he played out of his skin well, but a leader in a team that of full of young guys, and a team that really notoriously crumbles under pressure when they're not winning the game. And Kieran Foran stood up big time. Almost give him like an award for the spirit of the sort of the embodiment of the club. But I think Denan Kemp is just one of the most exciting youngsters in the comp. Pace to burn, beats defenders for fun, plays all over the place. Right, played at fullback, went into the halves, and looked pretty good in the halves too. And a big part of their future moving forward. So I'm gonna split it between those two. 2025.
2025, I see them very, very close to the top 8, but not quite. I think they'll be better than they were this year. Put him at 10th.
Give Desi Hasler, now that he's got a year under his belt, a little bit more runway. The Warriors in 13th. We did their season review last week, so just quickly running through it. Jello, I had them finishing in 5th. They finished 13th. I don't know, where'd you have them this year?
I had them in the 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, not as high as last year, but I had them 6, 7.
Yeah, and player of the year for you?
Michel Barnet.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the mole was thinking with his article on Channel 9, having about? Wade Egan as the player of the year and saying that we're the biggest disappointment of 2024, despite the Broncos, who nearly won a grand final, coming 12th. Outlook for 2025 quickly for the Warriors.
Back in the top 8.
Back in the 8?
Yeah.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
I think they fixed himself defensively and off the back of Fisher Harris and a really strong forward pack. I think we play to our strengths next year and finish in the 8.
Right, a couple more teams to go. Biggest disappointment for me in 2024, without a shadow of a doubt, was the Broncos in 12th position. 26 points, 10 wins, 14 losses. They go from grand finalists and 20 minutes away from winning a grand final to 12th position. I think it's a bigger shock and surprise than the Warriors, who some people think overachieved in 2023. I had them finishing first. I had them as minor premiers this year, Jello. I thought a year under their belt, having made a grand final, the hurt and the experience of that, with guys like Reece Walsh, with guys like Katoni Staggs and Reynolds and Mam and Carrigan and Haas. I mean, the team is stacked when you look at it. It's no surprise that they made a grand final. They finished in 12th. Very disappointing year for them.
I don't think they've got very good young guys. I don't think they have the balance of experience and youth. Someone made the point, was it Kevy or no, it wasn't Kevy. Someone in the Broncos staff, though, said we have too many overpaid young guys.
That's probably fair.
And when you look at who their talisman, who their leader was leading the way, Adam Reynolds, you take him out of the equation for 3/4 of the season and they lose their way completely.
And see, that's the big thing, Jello. Last year, if you look at the Broncos and the Warriors, so the Broncos with Adam Reynolds, the Warriors with Sean Johnson, both of those guys were fit for most of the season.
Yeah.
And that's a massive...
Yeah, that could be the difference, I think.
I agree. And they take Reynolds out. And it's not that when Reynolds came back in, he was great, but I will give the Broncos a bit of a runway here in the fact that I almost think, apart from the first few weeks, they never had Haas, Walsh and Reynolds all on the field at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So in that regard, player of the year for me, I'm giving it to Paddy Carrigan, because he was about the only one who played the whole season. And when there was no one in that forward pack doing the hard yards, Paddy Carrigan was the man in there. So, and leading as a guy who's been around for a couple of years. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm a second that. Paddy Carrigan for me as well. They lost him in the first game? No, somebody went down. Brendan Piakura got injured. Carrigan got moved out to back row and they crumbled in the middle in that game against the Roosters. And you could see how important it is for Carrigan to be there in the middle.
So all fit in 2025, where do you have them?
I see them in the 8. I don't think they'll make top 4. I don't think they kick on in finals. I think if they lose Adam Reynolds early in the year due to the same injuries he's having now, I think they're going to struggle big time.
So that's a big, and I know it's sort of superfluous and makes me sound like I'm flippant with the prediction. But if Adam Reynolds stays fit for the whole year, I actually do have them bouncing back big time and could be back inside the top 4. Yeah. I think their biggest issue this year was the injuries, like it was for the Warriors as well. Injuries and inconsistency with squad selection. I think if they can stay fit, they'll go a long way. But I say this every year, Jello. One of the team that generally wins the NRL each year is the team that stays the fittest for the whole season. Yeah. And the Storm have been one of the fittest teams. Yes, they lost Cameron Munster, but outside of that, they've had pretty much a stable roster every single week. Yeah. And that counts for so much.
And even when Munster was out, they still had Wishart step in for the second season now and improve so much, be so much better than he was last year. Just on the Broncos before we leave them, Billy Walters as a number 9. Do you think he's
not a No, he's not a premiership-winning number 9. But they got close last year, and like Mitch Kenny won a title with Penrith. Like he's not an out-and-out superstar. So I personally don't think yes, but I think you can hide that shortfalling or shortcoming with other positions. But personally, I don't think he's a premiership-winning hooker. Dragons in the 11th spot, very, very close to making the 8 in the end, and a real surprise for me. I had them at 17th to start the season. 28 points, 11 wins, 13 losses. Much better than everyone thought. Just waned towards the back end of the season and weren't able to clinch onto that top 8 spot.
Yeah, I hate the Dragons.
Me too. I don't like them.
Just something about them, I just don't know where they stand. Like all their players, like Ben Hunt can be an absolute genius one week and go and play Origin and be, the best player on the field. And then he'll come out and kick the ball, kick it out twice on the full and just completely miss tackles like he's never played a game of rugby league before. And you just rip your hair out watching these guys, man. And they'll put 50 on a team one week and then get beat by...
Makes tipping very hard.
Yeah.
Tipping competition's very hard.
But it's, I just don't know where I stand with them. For me, if we talk standout players, I think Jaden Sewer was very good.
Okay.
Very, very solid defensively. In the games that they won, he stepped up well.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Ben Hunt's inconsistency. I had him as potentially player of the year. I thought, despite all of that controversy last season about him wanting to leave and getting told to stay and him committing, I thought he played pretty well. But I think Zach Lomax played well too, and he's a guy that is inconsistent. He's a bit erratic. but he played Origin and was good in Origin.
He's had a hell of a season.
He's had a hell of a year. Great, off the kicking tee and scores tries as well. I think about that Warriors game where they towed us up and he just dominated us in the year.
Could he be a shout for Dally M?
No.
Why is that? Why is it never wingers ever in the conversation?
Well, I think it's that old adage. Actually, I guess it doesn't really apply to the Dragons because they weren't amazing, but it's that whole adage of like they're probably all taking points off each other, right? Like Ben Hunt's probably taking points off Lomax, who's taking points, to your point, off guys like Jaden Sewer. Whereas for us last year, it's like Sean is he's competing with maybe one other or two other per game, like whether it's an add-in or a Wade or whatever. But yeah, like tell me why Penrith haven't come close to a Dally M in the 3 years that they won the premiership. It's because they're all playing good.
Yeah, it's a stupid system.
It's a flawed system. Outlook for 2025 for the Drags.
I think they'll struggle. I think without Lomax, they kind of lose some direction in attack. I could see them in the bottom 4.
Okay, yeah, I'll have
Ben Hunt's another year older.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think they're 8. I don't think they're top 8. Sorry, Ken, they're not top 8 material in 2025.
Bloody Ken.
But I'll have them. I'll put them around that like 10 to 14 slot. I don't think they're quite bottom 4, but 10 to 14. 2 to go. The Dolphins, who finished in 10th, 28 points, 11 wins, 13 losses, really went on a slide after losing to the Warriors, by the way, when they were sitting inside the top 4. From there, they just keep going down and down and down. Not able to get it done in the last couple of weeks, and they finish outside the 8. Wayne Bennett leaves. The players all grow older. What did you make of their season this year?
I'm disappointed they didn't make the 8. I thought there were so many games that they were expected to lose, and they stood up and won just out of pure grit and determination. 1 to 13, like I love that squad, man. They're so good. As soon as they do get a couple of injuries, they struggle. It's what they struggled with last year. People talked about depth being an issue for them this year. I think they should be in the 8. They should have won that game against the Knights. If you go back, I know Bennett made some noise about that try that was disallowed. That's a travesty, man.
Yeah.
How the hell do you mess that up? I think if you're the referees right now, if you're Ainsley, you need to put some former coaches in the bunker.
Just to yell at them.
Oh, there's certain, this is the rules of the game, but there's certain...
It's common sense, they say.
There's common sense.
Game sense.
Yeah, there's subtleties and there's nuances within rugby league that, make sense to coaches. Like, coaches know what a player's trying to do when he gets to the inside shoulder. He knows what the defender's thinking. Therefore, he can speak on behalf of the common sense on what's going on.
Yeah.
Referees that are just reading the rule book inside foot, inside shoulder, blah, they don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it cost me my tipping comp as well.
And it has people ripping their hair out, and it keeps happening. Take former coaches.
It cost me a perfect week.
Hey, how many former coaches are there that would be available to fill that? There's millions. Assistant coaches,
There's a lot that don't have jobs.
Put one in the bunker. Anyway, back to the Dolphins.
Standout player?
The Hammer.
Okay, yeah, I was tossing up between Hammer and Herbie. I think Herbie had a great season.
I was going to say Herbie.
I would say breakout year because he was good for the Broncos, but this guy's really establishing himself as one of the best centres in the competition, attacking-wise. And not that this really matters, but coming from the UK, you don't see a lot of UK centres, right?
Yeah.
And he's really stamping his mark on the comp, so I'm a big fan.
Where do you see them for next year?
I see them sliding here. No Wayne Bennett. Players getting a little bit older as well. Maybe not sliding a whole lot. Like they finished in 10th, maybe once again that 10 to 14 slot, maybe 11th, 12th.
Yeah.
I think around then.
I think they're 2 week and a half. I don't think Sean O'Sullivan's up to. I think he can fill in for a couple of games. I think if he's your guy for the whole season, I think you're going to struggle.
Chris has texted in saying Jaden Sewer got Dragons Player of the Year, so Zach Lomax won't get any of the Dally M votes. If only that were the case, Chris, but those Dally M votes, seriously, the way that they give those out, I remember Nico Hines got 2 or 3 points against us, was it last year, or maybe it was the first game this year where he did absolutely nothing. Yeah. So you never know how they give out those points. Ken says, Sam, you don't want to put your house on it again, Dragons year 2025. I think I did say I put my house on them winning the wooden spoon. I did, didn't I, Ken? And then, but then me and Ken had a side bet about them making the 8, Ken, and they didn't make the 8. I said they wouldn't make the 8. Let's finish with the Raiders, Jello.
Ken, there's a set of keys for you here, mate.
You don't want the new house. It's not finished. We're going to take a break very shortly, and Denan Kemp's going to join us on the other side to preview the finals games this week. But just to round out our bottom, I guess I call them bottom 9. Why did I call them bottom 8? The Raiders. They finished in 9th, 30 points, 12 wins, 12 losses. A bit of a surprise for me. I had them in 14th. They did push and challenge the 8. Ricky just seems to get the best out of them every single year, Jello, and pretty impressive as well in 2024, despite finishing outside of the 8.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a bit of a rebuilding year for the Raiders. That team that went to the GF in 2019 just slowly, they're slowly going out the door now. So, with Whitehead going now, I think Rapana might be the only one left from that team. But the young kids that have come in, they've come in and they've stayed in and they've played really well. So I think they're going to be so good next year. Jamal Fogarty, I think he's been
Need him to stay fit.
Yeah, he's been a real gem. Him missing a lot of this year as well with that bicep injury, that hurt them because they started the year really strong.
They did.
When they lost him, similar to the Johnson, Reynolds injuries. I remember I said when he got injured, he would be missed by more. He would be the player missed more by any team.
Yeah. That kicking game gets him out of trouble a lot of the time.
Oh, that's it, man. And so, they really struggled with him. Similar to the Doggies with no Burton last week. So,
Player of the year?
Player of the year, Ethan Strange.
Wow, that's a big call.
Yeah.
I went Joey Tarpany.
Oh, yeah. I was just got
I even think Joey Tarpany might be in for one of the prop of the year. Like he'd be a close runner for prop of the year for me.
I'm going
to
throw Hudson Young in there too.
Yeah, he still has that tendency though to get himself into trouble and find himself on the sideline. So I think he's a great player, but I'm going to sit with Joey Tarpany. Just quickly, got to get to a break. Jello, where do you see them in 2025?
I see them in the top 8. They came close this year. And I think all those young guys are going to be another year older. I think they're going to be a lot more kind of locked in with the players they have and a lot more settled.
I'm gonna say
with Fogarty back.
Yeah, maybe 8th to 10. 8 to 10. I'll either get there or just this year, just miss out, I think. Only because I think there's teams that are better than them. That's all it is. It's not that they don't have the ability to do it because they showed us that this year, but it's that there's, I think, going to be more teams that are better than them. We're going to take a break. That is the bottom 9 season review done for us. We have 8 teams in the NRL finals. That gets underway on Friday night with the Panthers and the Roosters. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Denan Kemp out of Bloke in a Bar, out of the Captain's Run on SEN. Have a look at the 4 games across the weekend. Stay with us. Right, welcome back into Running It Straight here on SENZ. Finals footy time. Very, very exciting as that gets underway on Friday night. And joining us out of SEN over in Sydney, the man we're going to call, what are we going to call him today, Jello? Mr. Kemp, you wanted to call him coming in.
I like Mr. Beak. It's very formal but informal.
Okay, Denan Kemp, former Warrior himself, former Broncos on the line. G'day, Denan.
Very good, mate. How you going, boys? Very, very excited. Finals footy's around the corner. Both of our teams aren't in the finals, so we can feel this pain together.
Someone actually said to me out in the office that they think I'm a sellout now because my team's not there. They think you're just going to pick whoever's winning and say, that you saw it coming and everything, which, I don't know, I feel like I like being a neutral. It means I don't have an investment. It makes it a little bit more comfortable. But, mate, we're kicking off on Friday with Panthers Roosters at 9:50, and boy, it would have been such a mouth-watering clash had Sammy Walker been there with him and Carey going up against Jerome and Nathan. What do you make of it, mate? Panthers Roosters top 4 clash and the 3-time reigning premiers.
Yeah, it's a really interesting clash because I think both sides, you could look at for some negatives if you wanted to. The Roosters have the obvious one. Sam Walker, Radley's a bit of a question mark. You've got Cheese out as well. And then the Penrith Panthers, I mean, they just scraped by the Tides. Now, granted, I think we all like to live in a fairyland where players get up for every single big game and every NRL game's important. So you can cut the Panthers a bit of slack. Getting up for the Titans in the last round of the season, it would be hard when you've won 3 premierships in a row. And that's no disrespect to the Titans. That's just the way life is. So in saying that, I do think that the Panthers have looked a bit flat for at least a month of footy. I don't think they've reached anywhere near the heights this year that they did last year in regards to standard of footy. The problem is that Nathan Cleary coming back in just might be the injection that they need to get a bit of energy for finals footy. But I wouldn't count the Roosters out because, you look at that roster, it's not a bad roster. On top of all that, Sandon Smith, he was touted to take over in the halves next year anyway. So it's not like this random reserve grader that's just getting this shot. He's the next guy up next year. It's just a little bit earlier.
If we look at all these 8 teams, there's a little bit of fairy tale about a couple of these teams. So Roosters in particular, they're very battered and bruised. Troops missing, Knights just scraping in the 8. Panthers going for 4 in a row. Bulldogs, from the outhouse to the penthouse kind of thing. In your opinion, who would be the biggest fairy tale story if they were to go all the way?
Oh, it'd have to be the Bulldogs. However, I just don't know if they've got it in them. I think that Serraldo's probably sitting there. If you had a private conversation with Serraldo, an honest conversation where no one else would know about it, I think he'd tell you, mate, I feel like we're 2 years ahead of where we really should be. And I think that he'd be sitting there going, look, if we bow out, I'm still stoked with this year. Because you look at the roster, mate, they've punched so much above their weight. Another fairy tale, I guess, side, I think that the Knights would be one because of just the Kalen Ponga factor. We've seen players in the past, especially fullbacks, just go on these crazy runs. However, I just don't think those two guys have those two teams, have 4, big games in them, unfortunately.
Well, Kimby, would you say that you believe in fairy tales at least? So you look at teams that have come close, massive underdogs that have come close. Para 2010, Canberra 2019. When was the last time we actually saw a genuine fairy tale story in the NRL finals?
Yeah,
because in the last decade,
but no team's won it outside of the top 4.
Well, so I can't think of the last time. Are we due for some fairy tale heroic magic, over the next month?
I would say this year that it is much more open. Even a team like the Storm, I don't think universally people are sitting there going, Storm are the out and out best. No one can get close to them. Whereas I feel like last year and even the year before, it was Panthers definitely. And then last year it was definitely the Broncos and Panthers and no one else. Whereas this year, the Storm have lost to teams like the Dragons. They've had lulls throughout the year, and I do think it is quite wide open. And I do think that, for example, could the Cowboys beat the Storm on their day? I think they probably could, if they put it all together. And so I do think it is quite open. In regards to fairy tales, I'd say the last kind of fairy tale-ish would be the Cowboys in 2015. Now, granted, they were still one of the better sides. But the Broncos, were going so well in that grand final, and then just out of nowhere, it just all kind of turned on its head. I do think it's quite open, though. I really do. I think the Panthers look a little bit tired. I think Roosters with those injuries, that brings them back to the field. And the Storm, if you can get on top of their forwards, which it's not the craziest forward pack, you might have a little bit of luck.
Yeah, and it's interesting talking about the Doggies and Serraldo saying they're 2 years ahead. That's probably the Warriors last year. I remember getting Cam George on talking about how this window opened ahead of them that they hadn't really foreseen, and that's why they almost went all in on it. So it'd be interesting to see the Bulldogs over the next couple of years if they follow the Warriors trend and maybe just take a few steps back to par, as it were. What about the that Storm Sharks game on the Saturday? Obviously, you mentioned the Storm. They've been the team, really, the benchmark of 2024, first position, minor premiership. Sharks, who under Nico Hines coming back in, didn't get the win against the Warriors, but pretty impressive last week to finish the regular season. Are they any chance at Amy Park, the Sharkies?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've already gone down to the Amy Park and got the win without Nico Hines and without Trindle. I think the Sharks have been building into this. Yes, they lost that buzzer beater against the Warriors, but for 60 minutes of that game, they were the dominant side. And so I think the Sharks absolutely can go down there and ambush them. They've got a forward pack that totally understands its job now, its role. They've got outside backs, probably the most underrated outside backs in the competition. You look at their right edge with Ramian. It's the best defensive edge in the competition. The Melbourne Storm's right edge has actually been one of the not the worst, but definitely has leaked points. They've cleaned it up a little bit in the last month or so of footy, but there was a period there where that right edge for the Storm was really, really poor. So they've shown, again, if the one team that has beaten the Storm down in Melbourne is playing them week one of the finals, there's an argument to be made they're the most likely that could beat them down in Melbourne. Even the Roosters, full strength, went down there and got towed up. So I think there's definitely a chance the Sharkies could win.
Game 3, Cowboys Knights. Two sides haven't met since round 2. Went to Golden Point then. A lot of similarities between these teams. Who are you picking for Game 3?
Oh, look. If the Cowboys turn up and play the way they should play, their potential, they'll beat them 13+. It won't even be close. But the problem is, we don't know what Cowboys team's turning up. It could be the Cowboys team that just scraped by a reserve-grade Melbourne Storm side, or it could be the Cowboys team that went down to Sydney last week and absolutely towed the Bulldogs up. I'm leaning more towards the Cowboys of last week against the Bulldogs. I think that Peyton's got them reared up for the right part of the season. I think that the confidence that they'll have that, look, as long as we get inside their 20, we can score points. Whereas Newcastle's attack, it's solely reliant on Ponga. If you can just shut him down, they will not score points. Whereas the Cowboys, you've got to shut down Holmes, you've got to shut down Taulagi, you've got Drinkwater, Dearden. There's just so many attacking options.
Yeah, well, I feel like last year, if you look at that round 1, Knights came to New Zealand. I feel like the Warriors might have a little blueprint there on how to shut down Ponga
100%.
for that one.
Kick to the corners.
Game 4, Sammy?
Yeah, the big one for me, boys, Doggies, Sea Eagles, because very, very hard to pick. I know the tab over here has them at $1.92 a piece. I don't know, Kempy, it sort of feels the same like with the Seagulls. What Seagulls team are you going to get? What Tommy Trebojevic are you going to get? Because if they show up how they can show up, then I can very much see them doing a job over the Doggies. What do you think in Game 4?
Yeah, look, I think Manly get the job done, and it's a pretty solid win. I just think the Bulldogs, the last 2 games, they've lost a little bit of their swagger, a little bit of their confidence. It's been a huge year. It's like they have really come from out of nowhere. I had them as a bottom 4 side at the start of the year. And I just think Manly, the confidence they're going to have heading into this game, knowing that they can beat them by a substantial margin, knowing how to beat them as well through the middle with their bigger forwards. I can't see where the Bulldogs are going to get their points from. I watched them last month and I'm like, okay, they've been really good defensively, but you get into finals footy, it's a whole nother level. And I think that both the last 2 games the Dogs have played have been a step above in intensity to normal club games, and they've really struggled to go with them. So I reckon Manly get the job done.
Hey, Kimby, before we let you go, mate, I just want to give you your flowers. Okay, I love your work. Everything that you've done over these last few years, the way that you shine light on players that aren't superstars, I think it's absolutely awesome, man. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep doing it, brother. I love your work.
Hey, just before we do let you go, Kempy, actually, unfinals football radar, because I know you've been doing some sort of season review stuff, and you'll be doing that with Cam as well. Give me a team outside of the 8 who you think will turn around in 2025, a team that disappointed that you think actually in 2025 might get it right.
Oh, it's got to be South. I can't see Wayne Bennett with that roster not making the 8. It would be a travesty. I hope it's the Broncos and I hope it's the Warriors, but I think Souths are in the box seat. But also, thanks for those kind words, mate. I really do appreciate it.
No, we love your work, man, and we do appreciate coming on here, running it straight as well. I know the Kiwi audience is going to love hearing from you. So I appreciate you coming on, mate. Enjoy your finals footy,
and we might catch up with you closer to the GF as well. Appreciate your time.
Legends. Thanks, boys.
running it straight. We're not far away from 3 o'clock. Going to hand over to Kirsten Beeve on the run home very, very shortly. But we didn't actually, despite talking with Kempy, and it was great to have a chat with Kempy Jello. We might get him on a little bit later on through the finals. We didn't actually get our predictions away for the 4 games across the weekend. So Panthers, Roosters for you Friday night.
I'm going to take all the home teams. Pretty much.
Oh, there you go. Thanks for
Cut
listening
to
to Running
the chase.
It Straight.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
I think the only close one will be the Cowboys Knights. I think that could go either way.
I'm going Seagulls on Sunday. No doubt
really?
about that. Tommy Turbo on the side.
Yeah, they'll have no fear, going against. They've already gone.
I can see the
one.
fairy tale story coming to an end for the Bulldogs. Like, it's at our core, 50,000. As Kempy said, it'll be the fairy tale story, and Seagulls just rolling in and saying, "See you later, mate." And Daly Cherry Evans dominating the game. So
no Josh Adokar.
Yeah, correct. He stood himself down.
One question before we go, and I don't think many people could answer this. I'm still trying to find an answer. The Melbourne Storm, what is their weakness? They care too much. They're perfectionists.
I would say some of their edges can be a little bit frail, like if exploited in the right way. I still look at that pack and think if you look at that pack on paper, that's not a premiership pack. It's got nothing on Penrith or Sydney or even the Warriors, to be honest, in terms of the pack. But they do enough to get the guys like Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes into position. It's a great question, Jello. I would say sometimes their edges can get a little bit frail if you've got them under pressure, but that's so much easier said than done. I mean, who's really done that this year?
Well, you think how long
Apart from the Dragons.
Tui Kamika, he's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's only just starting to get game time now. So I don't think they kind of rank him
Started
that
on
highly.
the wing too, didn't he, Kamika?
Yeah.
He's
think
one
so.
of those guys that they just pulled from the wing in because he was so big.
Yeah.
By the by, I'm going to go Panthers, Storm, Cowboys, Seagulls. So I'm with you on everything except I'm going Seagulls over the Dogs.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, there you
I've
go.
got some TAB. I'm calling the TAB odds for the finals. So I'm going to put some bets in tomorrow. Nice.
Looking forward to that. We'll find the results of those next Wednesday.
Yeah,
That's us for another Wednesday. We will keep this going throughout the final series on SENZ. The run home with Kirsten Beeve is coming up next, but me and Jello, that is us signing off. Enjoy your finals footy.